Hi guys, this is gsn1.com and I'm here with a review of the Sony Xperia XA. Yes, I know it's late, but this one has become a bit of an instant classic as far as mid-ranger goes and as far as edge-to-edge design goes. So it was launched in the first half of 2016 and it's still a pretty appealing mid-ranger because it's priced at only $200 on Amazon and proposes an edge-to-edge format at the front, at least if you ignore the top and bottom side. Now we're dealing here with a mid-range phone that's about to get a successor at Mobile World Congress 2017. It's one of the prettiest mid-range Sony phones that we've ever seen, and let's talk about the design first. So it measures 7.9mm in thickness, which is the exact same thickness of the Galaxy S7, and weighs 137.4 grams, which is also reasonable and 17 grams lighter than the Sony Xperia Z5. It's also very comfy. It offers excellent grip, and let's see it. When used with a single hand, as you can see, you can reach all the areas of the screen with absolutely no problem and with a single hand. We got comfy buttons for the power, volume, and this one here for the camera, although a bit too low for my taste. Other than that, of course, you got a beautiful glass panel at the front that goes from one wedge to the other with very narrow bezels, and of course the top and bottom bezel are quite big, but in the end they make for a pretty good looking phone. Keep in mind, this is not a waterproof device. It's well built, it has a plastic back, and the various sources contradicting themselves. Some say these sides are made of metal, some say they're made of plastic. I would say they're a combo of plastic and metal, although the solidity makes me think of metal. The phone is available in black, white, pink, and a nice hue of lime. Sadly, the facade is pretty much a fingerprint magnet, and it's also quite reflective. We have a 2.5D glass panel at the front, and in the end it's a very well made phone with an excellent looking facade and also quite comfy to use. The only drawback here would be the lack of waterproofing and the presence of plastic within the chassis. Now, as far as the screen goes, this one is a 5-incher with an IPS LCD panel and a 720p resolution. We have 2.5D glass, and playback will happen with the aid of an app called Video, which as usual has a ton of options and also integrates a TV guide. Now let's watch our usual test clip. So we're dealing here with a very nice feel when watching videos. It feels as if the image goes forever at the top and bottom. It's like you're watching it to infinity, so to say. Anyway, now the actual picture. The colors are a bit oversaturated. The image feels a bit too wide for my taste. We get pretty okay viewing angles, and I mean wide view angles. We got a nice contrast in the sunlight. And we also have this top and bottom edge, which is nice for gaming and watching videos. You can hold on to something. Okay, now as I said, pretty bright, but the colors are oversaturated. Let's see how our other tests felt about that. Okay, so we did a analysis under the microscope, and we have here an RGB stripes pixel setup, and then we pulled off the lux meter and measured 448 lux units, which is great. This means we surpassed the LG G4 and the Microsoft Lumia 950 XL, but still we scored below the Lenovo Vive X3 and the iPhone SE. Now let's see what the special screen settings are available here. So we go to the settings and display, brightness level, adaptive brightness, sleep, smart backlight control, which is shown here. It automatically detects if you're holding the phone in your hand, and finally image enhancement. You can opt for off, mobile Bravia Engine 2, or super vivid mode, which makes the image even more vivid. Then there's white balance with RGB sliders, font size, system icons, and daydream. Overall a pretty solid screen, well, minus the calibration of the colors. Now moving on to other hardware, let's see what CPU, GPU and other stuff we're getting here. Okay, so we have the MediaTek Helio P10 octa-core processor available, clocked at 2 GHz, and the Mali T860 MP2 GPU, accompanied by 2 GB of RAM and 16 GB of storage, plus a microSD card slot. At first glance, you will not see any lag per se, but if you have many apps open in the background and you're doing a lot of things, you will experience some delay in app opening and app interaction, so lag may appear. Some fluidity cramps happen, and not only in apps, but also in some of the games like Riptide, GP Renegade. Sadly, this is our benchmark game. We played it on high-end phones, so low-end phones mid-range phones, and on this device, the Xperia XA, we encountered a slight hint of lag, also some lost frames. So far so good. Well, at least it seems to look okay on this nifty screen, but you'll see as soon as we start playing and the details get more complex, there's a bit of hiccup and a bit of delay and some frame losses. So slight delay here, even between our controls and the actual action, but the graphics are quite okay. This is by no means a gaming phone, you probably knew that already from the specs that include 2 GB of RAM. Now let's see what our benchmarks told us, because we also did those. So here we go. Now as usual, we did the battery of tests that include the Quadrant, Antutu and the works. In Quadrant, you'll be happy to know that we surpassed the Huawei P9 Lite, but scored below the Lenovo K6, so beat one mid-ranger and another mid-ranger beat us. Now in Antutu 6, that's the score we got, not exactly bad. We surpassed the Motorola Moto G4 but scored below the Huawei P9 Lite. In most of the tests we were either below or above the Huawei P9 Lite. We divided the wins and losses. In 3D Mark, iStorm Unlimited, which we like to call the benchmark of the gamers, we have a modest result. We beat the AllView X4 Soul, but score below the Huawei P8, which is quite old nowadays. The benchmarks are pretty modest, not very impressive, even for a phone that was launched early last year. Still, it's a mid-ranger, always remember that, and always remember that it's a $200 phone. I should also mention that the benchmark GFX bench did not run, so we couldn't do one of the temperature tests, and in the other one, there was a bit of overheating, 42 degrees Celsius after playing the game you saw before, which is Riptide GP Renegade. Now on the battery front, we're dealing here with a 2300 mAh lithium polymer unit, and let's jump straight into the results achieved by this battery. Okay, so we achieved a continuous HD video playback time in a loop of 7 hours and 57 minutes, which is okay-ish, not impressive, just okay-ish. It beats the Huawei Honor 8 and Huawei Honor 7, but scores below the Sony Xperia Z5 and the Lenovo K6, so could be slightly better. The disappointment comes in the form of the PC Mark result, which should be here somewhere. Okay, so instead of trying to find it here, let's check out our sister website, mobilissimo.ro. So we have here the battery results. As I said before, we got 7 hours and 57 minutes for the video playback, and for the PC Mark test, we have 5 hours and 9 minutes, which means it's a rather weak phone. It's placed on the 100th spot out of the almost 120 phones we've ever tested. It only beats the likes of the LG G Flex 2 and scores below the Xperia M5 and Z5, so not exactly impressive, quite underwhelming. We scored 2 hours and 1 minute in charging, which is pretty okay, at least we're doing better than the iPhone 6. Of course, we get usual stamina settings for the battery area. Here we go. We also have battery optimization and app power consumption, and stamina mode with a percentage to set, always on and never, and also the ultra stamina mode that will turn off the connectivity, the mobile connectivity, and let you with the basic app package. In the end, a modest battery. And now let's see what the acoustics are all about. So we get a singular speaker here at the bottom. You will not cover it with your hand in landscape, luckily, and as usual the music app looks great, has a ton of options, and integrates Spotify. Of course, we also have a bunch of settings to play with. Audio settings, we got Clear Audio Plus, sound effects, an equalizer with a ton of channels, surround sound, dynamic normalizer, and options for the headphones. By the way, we do not get bundle headphones with this phone, and let's start playing some tunes. Okay, now the conclusions: we have a pretty okay volume, nice high notes and a mid-level bass. There's a bit of distortion going on at max volume, but in the end I would say the results are, let's say, just reasonable. Now let's see how our tests were handled here. So we achieved first result of 85.8 decibels, which was in our Rita GP Renegade test, and then the result got higher with our acoustic sample. We achieved 88.4 decibels, which is quite nice at both the front and the back. This means we surpassed the OnePlus 3 and the Galaxy S6 Edge Plus, but we scored below the Lee Echo Lee Max 2. So that one is a champion, it scored more than 90 decibels. Anyway, the result is just okay, nothing fancy, only okay. Too bad for the lack of headphones. And now let's talk about the cameras. 13 megapixel shooter here with LED flash and hybrid autofocus, f2.0 aperture, and an 8 megapixel shooter here. I would say it's a surprise. I was expecting 5 megapixels, so we're happy with the 8 megapixel shooter. We have a physical camera button, which by the way triggers the camera, I would say quite fast, not the fastest in the world. Anyway, picture taking is also fast, the zoom is quite fluid. The zoom in is fluid, the zoom out, well, not so much. Now the focusing has a reasonable speed, although if you focus on close-ups you'll be disappointed. It takes a lot of while to get a proper focusing. The camera is typical for an Xperia. You already know the setup, flash options here, settings here. That was a bit of a bug. So we got self-timer, color and brightness, resolution, object tracking, smile shutter, and that's only for the superior auto mode. The manual mode has a lot of extras. We got scenes, about a dozen of them, white balance and exposure, and extra options here, ISO, HDR, object tracking, smile shutter, and so forth. On the video front, quite a few options for a $200 phone. Scene, HDR video, color and brightness, you can shoot up to full HD video and more. Okay, and then we have the camera apps, which include augmented reality thingies and sweep panorama, so that's it. Of course, there's also the selfie camera with a ton of features. Now let's go to the gallery, and rest assured we've taken a ton of photos both during the day and during the night. So those taken during the day were done in early February, which has got to count for something. Okay, so it was minus 10 degrees, it was a very sunny day, and I have to say that the camera gave us a pleasant surprise. We have an excellent texture of objects and snow. The colors are well calibrated and realistic. Every once in a while there's a bit of over sharpening, and here you can watch HDR in action, behaving pretty nicely. It takes a while to focus, to pull close-ups, but when you do pull them, they look very nice. And the selfies were a bit too white, both in the skin and in the background, I have to say that, but at least they were clear and the colors were not that bad. And check out those details. As I said before, if you manage to take a close-up, it's excellent for a $200 smartphone. And I'm talking about texture, the snow, the gravel, everything you see gets excellently rendered here. And the panorama looked quite nicely in spite of the pretty small resolution. It's clear, and we had the sun in front of us, and it did not spoil our picture. Some more attempts at close-ups, pretty reasonably calibrated colors, and when you take a landscape shot and zoom in, surprisingly, even for a 13 megapixel camera, the details are quite good. Nice object texture, and many phones would have had a dynamic range problem here, especially with that strong sun. Well, this phone doesn't. I'm pretty impressed. Check out the texture of the snow here, quite amazing for a, I'm not even going to say the price again, you remembered it, $200. The wind was blowing heavily here, that explains my hairdo, so let's forget about that. In the end, I'm very happy with the photo quality during the day. I have more close-ups here, totally impressive. I would put this on par with the Asus Zenfone 3, believe it or not, the Huawei Nova, and the Samsung Galaxy A5 2016, which is no small feat. Some of them have double the price of this phone. This is the daytime capture, and before you get too excited, the low light capture is rather poor. Sadly, you cannot have everything in life. So it's foggy, yellowish, at least the flash was okay. Everything feels grey, though, that's kind of strange. The streetlight halos are quite big, too much white, too much yellow. The streetlights are huge, the images aren't clear, the colors aren't impressive, and we still have a violet and blue hue at the top of the image. Only if you take close-ups you'll be happy with the nighttime capture, otherwise you can forget about it. It feels like it's even below some of the cheap Chinese phones we've tested recently, those priced at around 150 bucks. So we're done with the photos, it's a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde, and now let's check out the video. So MP4 Full HD, 30 frames per second and 70 mega per second bitrate. First video is this one. The microphone is pretty reasonable, although it did not face the wind properly. When you zoom in you lose quite a bit of details. The colors were calibrated decently, I would say, so pretty good colors again. And most of our videos were burned by the sun, so be careful with a day with strong sun. Okay, so we also filmed colorful thingies. Pretty solid focusing all around, nice exposure, good colors. Some of the areas are burned by the sun though. And we even tested the electronic stabilization. Of course there is no optical stabilization, but we felt the need to test it, and guess what? It's pretty good. We climbed a set of stairs, bobbing the phone around, and we did not lose focus or clarity, which is pretty nice. What gets lost during those videos for sure is clarity in the distance. So if you have some distance between you and the subject, you will start to lose some clarity. And by the way, we filmed this regular video and this HDR video, which is not very good because everything is blue. There is a shade of blue here and the colors are totally unrealistic, so forget about HDR video if it's very sunny and snowy outside. I would say that the video was a bit above expectations in this world where cheap phones don't usually film well. Now let's see the nighttime videos. Now let's check out the video nighttime capture, and unlike many other phones we've tested, this one will not lose frames per second or bitrate. So we're dealing with a full HD 30 frames per second and 17 megapixel capture. It's quite grainy, but the microphone is okay this time. We get big halos for the street lights, and once we zoom in there's some serious quality loss. The focus is okay, the image is a bit yellowish, but in the end not bad colors and not so bad clarity. I've seen worse on those affordable Chinese handsets we've tested recently. As you can see, quite a bit of detail loss when zooming in. Okay, we're done with the camera. Time to discuss other aspects, and we're going to start off with the browser. So we got Chrome here. Let's see how fast is loaded our website, gsnhome.com. So we're loading it right now. As you can see, not exactly very fast, is a so-so speed, which is confirmed by the poor result in the benchmark SunSpider. And that's the scrolling, pretty smooth. And as far as the input is concerned, we get Swift key with the opportunity to also do some swiping around. Now as far as the connectivity is concerned, the phone comes in two versions, either dual SIM or single SIM. You can easily access the slots here. You can remove the lid and they're easily accessible, no need for a metal key. And on the connectivity side, we got a nano SIM card slot, LTE category 4, Wi-Fi ABGN, Bluetooth 4.1, there's NFC, DLNA and Miracast, and also USB OTG. The calls have an interesting feature, so if you go here, you will see something called answering machine, which is quite nice to have, but the calls themselves, they're not very loud, the clarity is okay, and the microphone wasn't exactly top league. We also did a speed test, and let's see what happened there. Okay, so we go here, and these are the values we achieved. A top level of 74 megapixel download in 4G, 47 megapixel upload, also 4G, and in Wi-Fi 65 megapixel download speeds, 18 megapixel upload speeds. These are within normal limits, maybe except for the Wi-Fi upload speed, which I expected to be a little bit better. Now on the software front, the Sony Xperia XA is able to run, or better said, it debuted with Android 6.0 Marshmallow. One would have expected to see Nougat on it, well, maybe after its successor launches. The Marshmallow experience is offered with the Xperia UI on top, which means a lot of transparency, gloss, and a combo of white and gray. Multitasking is done via carousel, and if you keep the home screen pressed, you can get into the widgets, wallpapers, themes, and settings. Widgets are here, combination of Sony's and the stock ones. Wallpapers, quite beautiful. Themes, you can personalize your device with a bunch of combos here or make your own theme, and settings related to icon size, icon pack, transition, and so forth. The drop down area includes notifications and of course quick settings. Now speaking of settings, we go to the actual settings list. There's nothing fancy here. We don't have a fingerprint scanner on any type of special option to mention here. Now as far as the pre-installed apps list goes, we have a suggested area here, we have a search bar at the top, and the total number of pre-installed apps is 44, which is quite big. So aside from the regular Google package, there are some extras from Sony. So we got a PlayStation app, we got a What's New app, weather and news, FM radio is also here, there is movie creator, there is sketch, track ID, Spotify, Amazon shopping, and here we have some video and TV side view and the antivirus protection courtesy of AVG protection. Okay, now that we're done, it's time for the final verdict related to the Sony Xperia XA. So on the pro side, we have a great camera, especially during the daytime shots, not too shabby video as well. Of course, the phone looks great for a mid-ranger with this edge-to-edge approach. We got some nice looks overall for the device. It's quite comfy, it handles filming okay, it has a pretty bright screen, it's quite loud during music playback, and it has a low price. So those are the pros. Now on the cons side, we have to mention the performance is rather well low mid-range for this phone. It gets a bit hot, it will not run all the benchmark, it loses some frames in the games, and low light capture is not impressive at all. The screen colors could have been better calibrated, and there's a bit of distortion in the audio when listening to music at the top volume. In the end, this is by definition a multimedia phone, so it means you're going to take pictures with it, you're going to listen to music, and you're going to use the screen to consume video, although the battery should also be on the cons list because it's rather underwhelming. So media phone with good looks, ideal for the youngsters. $200 is not a huge price, but you should remember that youngsters also do gaming, and this one doesn't exactly do gaming. A low mid-ranger by definition with excellent multimedia abilities. We look forward to seeing its successor soon at Mobile World Congress 2017. This is it from gsn1.com. Bye bye.